Good afternoon. This is Key Francis behind me, and I'm Kim Karen. And we're going to try to do our live interview at his studio today because we could not get connected earlier. So we're going to try and get going. And we've got some people finally showing up. Key could not get it to work. It was very frustrating, but we're going to make this happen. So this is Key Francis right here, and it's one of his big paintings he's got on the wall that he's been working on, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, and then we're going to chat some more. I got some questions for him, and we'll kind of go from there. The biggest thing I want to tell you is that Key is 6 feet away, so we're trying to be safe with the social distancing. So anyway, all right, so Key lives here in Tupelo full time. He retired from University of Central Florida, but had born and raised here. So we're just going to go. You can look more about his bio on our website and on his Instagram feed, which is Key Francis Art. And we're just going to start asking him the questions, and you'll get to see a little bit more of his studio in just a minute. So I'm going to flip this around so you don't have to look at my face anymore, and we'll kind of go from there. So let's see if we can do this. All right, Key, there you are.
Okay.
All right, so let me start with the first question, and that is, how did you, someone said, yay, UCF. So we got some of your followers on here. That's good. All right, so my first question that I've been asking everybody is, how did you become an artist, and to kind of your personal journey getting there?
Well, I would say probably one of the things I was not interested in being an artist as a young person. I had an uncle that was an artist, and he supplied me with art supplies and paints till he found out I was copying Picasso, and then he quit sending them to me. But my family, I think, was always supportive of anything I wanted to do, so I've always had good support. And but I was always interested in making things and working with things, but art being a professional artist was not.
Was it on your agenda?
Wasn't really on my agenda. No.
Yeah. But you went on to Mississippi State.
Yep.
Hale State. And and just tell us about how you went there and kind of where you studied.
Yeah.
And because you went there for a little while with a different major, and then went on to, I think, Memphis State or Memphis.
Then it was Memphis State.
Right.
Studied Memphis University, and then I transferred from Memphis State to the Memphis College of Art, which was the Memphis Art Academy at that time, and was there for 2 years, and then I transferred to the Cleveland Art Institute in Ohio.
Okay.
And I stayed there. It was a 5-year school, so I stayed there. It was a 175-hour undergraduate degree.
Gosh.
So I stayed there for to complete my 5 years, and then they hired me back as an instructor, and I taught there for 2 years. And during that period of time, I made enough money to come back and build a studio here in Tupelo.
Yeah.
And I moved back to Tupelo in 1970, and then from 70 to 96, I was just here working as a
full-time artist.
Full-time artist.
Yeah. So just, I told you I would probably divert some questions or kind of, as to how you responded. So I didn't realize that you said Cleveland it was a 5-year program.
Yeah.
So is that typical today? It's more of a...
It was not typical even for the art schools.
Oh, okay.
The idea was then that if you went to a professional art school and you went for the 5-year program, which the last year was very much like a graduate program. You were given studio space, and you chose the instructors you wanted to talk to you about your work.
Right.
And when you finished with that, you were certified to teach in any of the other major art institutes, Chicago or Cal Arts or any of those places.
Okay.
You could teach in any of the professional art schools. Now, the academic degree was a different thing if you wanted to teach at a university.
Right.
But even the universities waived a lot of that for professionally trained artists if you had a degree and experience.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because I knew you, like you said, you came back to Tupelo until 96, and then went to
Memphis State.
Okay.
Then,
but I mean, like after you came back here, and you're here till 96, and you said
I
then
stayed
you
here till 19 I came back in 70 and I was here till 96. So I was here 26 years.
Yeah.
Right here in this building.
Yeah. And we'll do a little glimpse of it. Well, actually, I'm going to give a tease. Key and I will do a tour of his studio afterwards, and we'll upload that later on. So y'all need to be looking, because there is some, I'll do a little snip of it, but he has got some of these huge presses that you just cannot imagine how cool they are. So, and this giant letterpress, oh my gosh, or fonts, whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, I struggle with all this, but anyway, so and you went back to you went after you were in 96.
Yep.
You chose to go down to University of Central Florida, and you taught there for another 18 years, and retired as the Dean of Art there. Is that correct?
Well, I retired as a research dean.
Yeah. So anyway, so you have a lot of experience in the art world. A lot of different kinds. I mean, every time you and I chat, it's always a long conversation, because there's just so much that you've experienced and done and learned from, and I've learned a lot from that, and it's been fun to learn that. And I try to tell people all the time, I was a business major, I was an art major, and there's just still so much for me to learn and understand. And it's just a whole nother world of understanding, navigating.
It's an interesting world. Rob Reedy, he was at the University of Central Florida too. I mean, he may be watching this, who knows? But he and I designed furniture one year for KD Furniture.
Oh my gosh!
Up at past Tishomingo up there.
Up at Iuka, maybe?
I'm not sure where it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, we designed furniture for him, and it's very funny now because it was all cast iron furniture that they mass marketed, and I go into McDonald's or chain restaurants, and I see the tables.
Y'all's original designs? That's crazy.
And, yeah, it's very funny. We've done a lot of things. I did professional photography for a while. I photographed their furniture for them and stuff.
Yeah.
All that I was going on and doing my art, but when I was doing installation work and work that wasn't, you had to sell a whole room full of stuff then.
Yeah.
I did other jobs.
Yeah.
Photography.
Right. Okay. See, I'm still learning. All right. So let's get into this, and you may need to combine. I've been kind of combining this question the more I've asked people, because I think it all kind of comes together, and yours is going to be very broad, so that's why I want to ask you these questions all together, because you are you do a lot more than, say, when I was talking to Ellen Langford yesterday, because she's just mainly paints.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go there. So my question is, what is your primary medium, your favorite imagery, and your subject, and your favorite subject matter? Mm-hmm. So you can kind of take that and run for an hour, but
well, I can. I'll try to be brief about it. But I have. There are times when I say to different people, maybe I'm not an artist. I think that's still up for dibs there, conversation. But I'm very interested in narrative, and I'm interested in the whole history of storytelling. And I'm interested in visual narrative and implied narrative, which is how images are combined to create a story. And that may not be illustrative. There may not be a specific story. There may be a dialogue going on between the shapes and the forms and the characters in the painting. Mm-hmm. And that's open to your interpretation. And the second thing I'm interested in, of course, is actually writing stories and short stories mm-hmm. and poetry, and doing my own books with my own illustrations and images that either parallel those thoughts or mm-hmm. illustrate those thoughts. When I grew up in the art world, illustration was sort of a distant stepbrother of fine art.
Right.
And that's changed a whole lot, thankfully. I mean, some of the best painters this century have been illustrators. Mm-hmm. And I think, that's coming into play a lot now. No distinction. I mean, in Japan, there's no distinction between craftsman and artist, and I think that's great. I think the idea that you work with your hands and you make things and you use your mind and you're creative, that's really pretty much all the same action, regardless of what the end product is.
Right.
I am interested, and I've always been interested in printing. I think I read the life history of Benjamin Franklin when I was probably about 10 years old, and I bought a little hand replicating press that I could set rubber type in, and I printed a newspaper for Magnolia Drive.
Of course. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Delivered it to everybody up and down
on the street.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Sort of an early idea, but printing was something that always interested me.
Yeah. Well, when we after we did the live interview, I want people. That's what I had told you earlier. I said I really want people to see these large presses that you have, and maybe do some close-ups of some of these woodcuts and the carvings and all that kind of stuff, so people can really fully understand, what you have and what you do. So let me, yes, you are into your older years.
74.
74. So, tell us a little bit how you've transitioned from distractions of family. And I think that's the biggest thing that I think artists deal with, is that, at one stage they're maybe just 20 and they're just having distractions of parents trying to navigate their journey for them, or they're young married and they got little kids, and then they've got kids that are in high school. You've gone through those phases, having children and now grandchildren and great grandchildren, and a spouse and siblings and that kind of thing. How do you stay focused and not get pulled into dealing with that and chasing those rabbits and focusing on your art?
Oh, I could say, I think the truth is you have to be very selfish. I don't think there's any way around that.
Yeah.
I think you have to be focused, and you can set some priorities. But I think my first marriage was with another artist, and that, I think, for those stages of my life was a really good thing. We both wanted to be out in the studio working during the day, and it wasn't a conflict. And when we got in at night, we were both tired, and we went to bed, cooked dinner, and went to bed. Yeah. And we had a daughter who liked being out here and grew up
in the studio with you.
Yeah, and she would spend time in the studio with me. I would be working on clay pieces or something. She'd work in clay. I think I was an only child, so I think I was tremendously focused.
Right.
But I've been lucky in having a lot of supportive people around me. I haven't felt the need to exclude any of my family, but I'm a very private person. I mean, I don't have any problem at all with coming in the studio in the morning at 7 o'clock and staying until 5 in the afternoon with nobody else talking to me at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I am very happy with the silence.
Right.
I'm very happy with my private creative life.
Yeah.
So I think one thing about the arts is it accommodates all different types of people, and there's some people who are very social, and they manage to find a way to integrate their social life with their art, and they enjoy the openings, I think, maybe more than I do. And the public relations parts of it all more than I do. I enjoy the work and seeing something creative become a reality. In fact, I enjoy seeing it become a reality way more than I enjoy the work. The work itself is sort of drudgery in most cases. Yeah.
Well, I think that you understand what it takes to get things done, and that that there are certain components that you may not like to do, but you do it anyway, and you work through it, and the end goal is going to create a great piece, or like we were talked about before. You do books,
Right.
So let's see if we can list them all: books, and woodcuts, engravings, etchings. You did the watercoloring of some of those.
Yeah.
Paintings. You used to do clay. You don't do clay
anymore.
Yeah. You turned your
sculpture pretty much just dropped out of the mix after I got to be 50 years old.
It's too
All
much.
the big steel pieces around got to be too much.
Yeah, and I'll show a picture of that in our studio tour as well, so people can get an idea of that. But to me, I always considered you and like Rob Reedy and some of these other artists that are over 50.
Mm-hmm.
They have a wide range of things that they work in, whereas I think a lot of people younger than that, they just do one medium and one kind of targeted
That's because
creation.
They spend so much time posting themselves on Facebook.
Oh, now come on. But I don't know. Do the schools encourage them to do multiple mediums, or do they encourage them to try to focus on one thing and do one thing good?
Well, I think the idea of school, what you try to learn in school is how to learn. I mean, that's actually that's the process by which you learn anything is what you want to learn in school.
Yeah.
And then you choose as needs be how to learn those things you need as you go through your career, and those things change as you go through your career.
Right.
But if you've learned to learn, that's a different thing. There's a whole idea about skill sets that is sometimes I think overplayed. That people can generally pick up almost any skill if they apply themselves. Being able to make a visual decision and to organize their thoughts in a logical way, to present an idea, present an image, those are the things you need to learn. And I think as you kind of work, you determine what things you need. I mean, to understand that since I was writing and I was making images, books were the natural place where those two things come together.
Right.
Then to understand what I needed to do was make books, and to understand how to go about making books was a new frontier for me.
Right. Because
I had to learn how to work presses. I had to learn how to set type. I had to learn how to get the ink consistencies right and choose the right papers and all of that.
And then stitch the pages together.
And
now, because you used to have someone that would bind for you. Now that you do it yourself, because you're like, well, it's hard to find someone, and you can find a machine on eBay and have it shipped to your house from China, and and learn how to do it. Know, and I think that's I think it's exciting to see someone like yourself that you see a problem presented, and it's like, well, let me just figure out how to just do it myself. Because trying to find someone to do it and do it in your specifications and in your quality, it's like, well, I can just do it myself. And you figure it out.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a difference between a craftsman and an artist in that regard. Is that take bookbinders. If you're a professional bookbinder, you probably need to know how to do 15 or 20 different kinds of bindings. Right. Because the people that come to you that seek your assistance have a wide range of things they need. Sometimes they want a fan fold book. Sometimes they want a book that folds out makes a box. Yeah. Sometimes they want a book that is like a traditional book. Sometimes they want it leather bound. Sometimes they want it cloth bound. Sometimes they want to print marbleized paper. All of those things total out to be quite a lot of information a bookbinder needs, but I just need one.
You just need one.
I just need to know how to bind the books I make.
That you're making. And, I think people, hopefully they're learning, from our conversation today, is that, people don't realize that there are people like you who still bind their own books.
Yeah.
And you just think about a book, and it's bound by this huge, machine somewhere in a warehouse, and they have no concept of people making handmade books. Nicole alluded to making some things. I can't remember what the word was. She called it a
zine.
Zine. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I just thought that was interesting word, but it was funny how
short for magazine.
Oh yeah. There you go. Obviously, I didn't catch all that the other day. Anyway, let's see. And my last question is, why do you paint? Why not another career? Because I know, like I said, you went to Mississippi State, focused on engineering,
Right.
and then decided this is not for me.
Exactly.
So what moved you to go as a professional artist?
Well, I started in commercial art and advertising, and that was because my parents thought the idea that of being an artist was just so far out that I couldn't possibly support myself. And gradually, I think as I moved through my training, I realized I probably could support myself because I had enough different facilities to do that.
Yeah.
And only 2% of the people that study art actually become professional artists and full-time working artists. I mean, the other 98% are involved in the art world in a lot of different other ways. But 2% actually make a living on their work, solely on their work. And I realized to do that and to do it for Tupelo, Mississippi, I needed to do quite a lot of things because the demand for just one of them would be very limiting in a small community.
Yeah.
So I learned to do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But I think I think it's harder for people to start out with the idea of learning all these things. It's almost defeating if you have to learn all of it at once. But if you're kind of moving through the things that you need, and you learn it as you need it, then if you have a long career, you probably will have done quite a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Well, I appreciate your time today. I hate that we've had to adapt to our interview, and I hope that the feed has been good. I know the service isn't the best, but we'll check it out afterwards and see how it looks, and we'll get it loaded to YouTube, and then we'll post your studio tour later today or tomorrow morning.
Sounds great.
But I appreciate all your time.
Thank you.
All right.